Veteran Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa and the Unexpected Reunion After War, the story of a Vietnamese veteran being sought out by an American soldier nearly 40 years later, was once only passed around as local lore. But it wasn't until Mr. Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa himself shared the story that people truly grasped its depth. Mr. Nghĩa, a veteran from Tay Giang Commune, now part of Tiên Hai Town, Thái Bình Province, fought in both the resistance against the French and the war against the Americans. After the war, he lived quietly like many other returning soldiers. No one expected that one day, an American soldier who had once fought in the Central Highlands would show up in this small village. That American soldier didn't come as a tourist. He brought with him a story of survival and deep gratitude. After decades of searching, he finally tracked down the man who saved his life amid the chaos of war, Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa. Initially, the villagers were bewildered. They couldn't understand why a former American soldier would go so far as to bring Nghĩa and his son to the U.S. for medical treatment, calling him "my friend" and handling all the paperwork. Rumors spread. Few could comprehend the bond between two veterans once on opposite sides of the battlefield. Only when Nghĩa and fellow veterans recounted the events did people realize, even between enemies, a profound sense of humanity and debt could take root. A single act that changed both lives forever. On May 1968, in Ngoc Hoi District, Kon Tum Province, a fierce battle erupted between Nguyễn Văn Nghia's unit, where he served as Deputy Political Officer of Company C-17, Regiment 24, and American troops deployed by helicopter. It was one of the deadliest clashes of the war. Artillery rained down, hand-to-hand combat broke out, and bodies from both sides lay scattered across the hillside. As the fighting eased, Nghĩa noticed an unusual rustling in a nearby bush. He approached with his rifle raised and spotted a wounded American soldier lying on his back, blood pouring from his chest. The man struggled to reach for his rifle, but was too weak. Nghĩa recalled aiming his gun, finger on the trigger, but then pausing. He was already dying, Nghĩa remembered. His eyes weren't just afraid, they were pleading. I thought, I have a mother, a wife, and children. Maybe he does too. Instead of pulling the trigger, Nghĩa retrieved a bandage from his backpack and tended to the soldier's wounds. He helped him sit against a tree to breathe more easily. When American reinforcements returned, Nghĩa had to leave quickly. He fired back in defense and retreated, leaving behind his backpack. That seemingly small decision changed both their lives. 25 years later, the same backpack, once abandoned under fire, would find its way back to Nghĩa, carried by the very man whose life he spared. The backpack returns and a reunion after 25 years. One morning in May 1993, while having tea at home, Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa was called to the gate. A group of Vietnamese visitors and a foreign man stood waiting. A woman in the group confirmed his name, then introduced the foreigner, Paul Edward, a U.S. veteran who had fought in the Central Highlands. Though surprised, Nghĩa immediately recalled the wounded American he had helped during the battle at Kon Tum. Paul held an old notebook in his hands, bearing the name and address, Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa, Tay Giang Commune, Tiên Hai District, Thái Bình Province. When Nghĩa confirmed his identity, Paul embraced him tightly, tears streaming down his face. Through a translator, Paul said, "Without you, I would have died. I came to Vietnam to thank you." A memory once buried in war resurfaced. Paul explained that after being evacuated and treated in the U.S., he couldn't stop thinking about the Vietnamese soldier who saved him. Inside the backpack he'd taken from the battlefield, he found Nghia's documents and diary, which he kept for 25 years, hoping for the chance to return them. Now, standing in Nghia's yard, Paul respectfully returned the old backpack, still containing a green uniform, a canteen, a knife, commendation papers, and a worn journal. Neighbors gathered to witness the emotional exchange. The American, once an enemy, now embraced Nghĩa with heartfelt words, "My savior." Traveling to America for treatment and a bond beyond borders. Following their emotional reunion in Thái Bình, Paul Edward expressed his gratitude with a sincere offer to bring Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa to the U.S. for medical care. Knowing Nghĩa had been exposed to Agent Orange during his service in the Central Highlands, Paul handled all procedures covering costs and sponsoring both Nghĩa and his son, Nguyễn Văn Dien, to come to America in October 1996. In Dallas, Texas, Paul welcomed them as family. He arranged housing, visited daily, and personally accompanied Nia to the hospital for tests. Doctors diagnosed Nia with heart disease, diabetes, and severe eye damage caused by chemical exposure. Throughout the treatment, Paul stayed by his side, ensuring every need was met. After 3 months, Nia's health improved. Paul proposed that he stay in America permanently. Through a translator, Paul said, "I want us to be lifelong friends. I will take care of everything." But Nia gently refused. As a veteran and a lifelong member of his political organization, he couldn't abandon his homeland, family, and duties in Vietnam. Understanding but undeterred, Paul then offered to sponsor Nia's son to stay and build a future in America. After careful consideration, the family agreed. Dien eventually settled in the U.S., married a woman from Da Nang, and built a stable life. For Nia, the trip to America was more than just a medical journey. It was a passage through gratitude, a reaffirmation of humanity from someone once across enemy lines. A lifelong promise and gratitude never forgotten. Before returning to Vietnam, Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa made a special visit to Paul's home altar to pay respects to Paul's late mother, a woman he had never met, but who played a silent, powerful role in the bond between the two men. Staring at her kind face in the framed photo, Nghĩa felt a lump in his throat. He recalled the moment decades ago when his finger rested on the trigger, but didn't pull. "Had I done it," he said, "she would have lost her son forever. But she gave birth to a man of honor, and somehow, she also gave me back my humanity." Paul once shared how his mother had often reminded him to find the Vietnamese soldier who saved his life. Despite the war's wounds, she never forgot. On her deathbed, she whispered, "If you don't find the man who saved you, you'll be living with a debt unpaid." Nghĩa returned home with renewed health and a deep belief that even across battle lines, there are still people of honor. The photos he kept, Paul sitting beside his hospital bed, gently massaging his shoulders, were not just memories, but proof of compassion that defies borders. "Who would have thought that two former enemies would become kindred spirits?" Nghĩa said. "By sparing one life, I saved my own soul. In war, I chose not to kill, and in doing so, I preserved a piece of my humanity. One act of kindness, a lifetime of gratitude." After Nguyễn Văn Nghĩa declined to remain in America out of loyalty to his homeland and principles, Paul Edward made another heartfelt request. "If you can't stay, let your son, Nguyễn Văn Dien, remain. I will take care of him until he can stand on his own." At first, Nghĩa and Dien hesitated. Letting his son live alone in a foreign country was no easy decision. But Paul's sincerity and persistence moved them. He explained that helping Dien was his way of honoring his late mother's final wish, to repay the man who had once saved her son. Recognizing the depth of Paul's gratitude, Nia's family agreed. Dien remained in the U.S., gradually building his life with the support of Paul's family. Later, he married a woman from Da Nang and established a stable, fulfilling life in America. More than 20 years have passed, but the bond remains unshaken. To Nia, everything that unfolded after the war was unimaginable. One moment of restraint, one act of mercy, had transformed not just two lives, but an entire lineage. He often told his grandchildren, "You don't need wealth to be a good person, but you must always have a conscience." The photos he kept, Paul hugging him at the hospital, revisiting the old battlefield, were more than memories. They were testaments to humanity's power to heal, to bridge, and to endure. Amid the chaos of war, Nghĩa made a simple choice: to save a life. And from that moment, he planted a seed of compassion, one that continues to bloom to this day.